Hi, I'm Dave. Welcome to my channel, My Yard Sale. Hey, today I want to talk a little bit about a recent purchase that I made that I feel like has changed my life a little bit for the better. Now, to set the right expectation, I want to make sure that on this video I mention that I live in the Northeast where it gets to be 100 degrees in the summer, 105 degrees in the summer. It gets to be sometimes 40 below zero in the winter. Now, it's been moderately cold this winter so far for me, but occasionally I do get nights down into 20 and 25 degrees. Now, of course, I have heat. I turn the heat on in my room, in my house, in my whatever room that I'm in. I turn the heat up and I keep the heat around 60, 62 degrees, which isn't horrible. I wear I wear this kind of shirt or jacket. I wear like a flannel indoor outdoor coat. I wear a hat, and these kind of things keep me mostly warm throughout the winter. But there are those nights where it's freezing ass cold. Like lately, it's down in the 20s at night, and it can get as low as 20 below zero where I live. So temperature is an extremely uncomfortable thing for me at times, mostly to the colder side because I'm from Florida and my body isn't made for the cold. So the colder it gets, the more uncomfortable I get. Again, I can turn the heat up, which the money is a situation for me, so I have to be careful of the costs. I have a a heater that I usually keep in the room that I'm in, and I keep it not cold, but just warm enough that I'm not cold, but cool enough that I don't feel like I'm spending, $5 an hour on electricity. So I bought an electric blanket recently, and I'm going to be totally honest, totally transparent. This has been a little bit of a life changer for me. Now, I had an electric blanket 30 years ago when I lived in Connecticut. It was a Sunbeam blanket, and I have fond memories of having that blanket. It had like an old clicker on it that was like, it made a clicking noise when you went from low to high, and it had a light on it. And I remember living in Connecticut, it getting cold, and I would have that thing so high that I would turn it all the way up sometimes. And I would sleep so comfortably and warm. I was never cold under that electric blanket. Now, as the winter is getting a little bit colder this year, I'm finding that like I can add the amount of blankets that I need, but it's difficult. I've actually gotten to the point where I change the layers of the blankets that I sleep under to alternate the insulation so that I can keep the most amount of heat. Like I have a Sherpa blanket, which is pretty thick. It's like a 10-pound blanket. It's heavy. Like trying to pull the whole thing across the bed to set the bed up. It's heavy. It's a heavy Sherpa blanket. And for most cases, like during any time in the fall or the spring, it's too warm. But all winter it's very warm, except for those again 20 below or zero nights. It's a little bit still chilly, which again I've had in the last 10 days or so. So I made this purchase. I bought an electric blanket, and I was mentioning about Connecticut. I had a Sunbeam electric blanket 30 years ago as a kid, and I loved it. It was so warm. I was never cold. The technology in electric blankets has really changed. Like the connections are all still the same. The controllers are a little bit different. Like I feel like the controller now is a little bit less user friendly, even though the electronics of the controller is better. It automatically shuts off after 12 hours, but actually turning the little controller can be not difficult, but I have neuropathy in my hands. So actually controlling the controller, turning the knob on the controller can be a little bit difficult. But the actual technology of the blanket, um, the wires are so much thinner. It's almost like the blanket itself is like just a fleece blanket. You can't really feel the wires in it. And when I was doing research for this, for buying this thing, I saw that people were saying that it didn't put off enough heat. And boy, I gotta say, those people are probably just doing things wrong. Because I set this blanket up in the last week, and I put this blanket on 1. And of course, I have 1 to 12 as settings. I put it on 1. I may set it on 4 or 5 to just heat it up. But once things are heated, at 1, I'm like trying to get some cooler air. It's almost too hot. I could turn it off. I don't like to turn it off because then it does get cold. Because then I've got the air temperature. That's the temperature, which for me is in between 50 and 60 degrees, which can be pretty uncomfortable sleeping. I'm not going to get a good night's sleep in 50 or 60 degrees. At least I'm not, for sure. Anyways, I set it on 1 once this blanket is heated up, and I'm plenty warm for the remainder of the night. Now again, I've got a sheet, I've got this electric blanket, and I've got a Sherpa blanket on top of it that's insulating the heat, I'm sure, inside the blanket. So it definitely stays extremely warm. These people that are saying they can't turn the blanket up enough, they clearly need to have a better insulating blanket on top of the whole stack. They probably just have the blanket on top of the sheet or on top of a sheet, thinking that's going to keep them warm, which it probably can, but it's not going to be enough when you've got 50 or 40 degree air in the room and the blanket is getting the heat sapped away from it constantly. So for the electric blanket, the insulation on top of it makes a big difference. But again, for me, I can heat the blanket up, then I'll turn it on, I'll put it on 1 or 2, and let the thing shut off in 12 hours. And I'm warm all night. I'm plenty warm all night. And that is a life changer. When you stay warm, or I guess in the summer you could argue it the other way that you want to stay cool. But when it's cold out and you're a summer kind of person like I am, staying warm throughout the night and sleeping makes my sleep so much better. I sleep so much better. And I know that I'm using less electricity because, again, I'm just heating the area in between the blanket and my sheet, which includes me, and I'm insulating with this Sherpa blanket on top of it. I'm not heating the entire room. So I can turn the heat down in my room to 55 degrees, 58 degrees, and still stay totally cozy and warm in bed at night, which is where I'm mostly trying to stay warm. Anyways, this electric blanket, again, it's a Sunbeam fleece blanket, and I will link I'll link it so that anybody who's interested in checking it out can. Again, the knob to turn the thing up and down is not impossible, but it's a little bit difficult for me to manage with the neuropathy in my hands and fingers, but it's not undoable. I can definitely do it. This thing is like really changed my life. It makes it so that I know when I go to bed I'm going to be nice and warm and not freezing cold, which is kind of nice. And again, I'm happy for spring to come. It'll be nice when it starts warming up again, but it's not such a drag. Just being in my room and going to bed at night, it's much better. So I just wanted to share this because I think I have not really considered having an electric blanket in the last 10 years, even though I probably could have used it, just because I had my experience with my old blanket, which the wires were like full-on electric wires. Like you could literally take that old blanket, lean it up, and it wouldn't stand straight up. but it would be stiff because of the wires in it. So these new wires in this new blanket, it's just like a fleece blanket. It'd be like if there was no wires in it at all. This blanket is, the wires are so thin. Again, I'm hoping this isn't a hopefully this isn't the last post I'll make before my house burns down because the wires in my blanket were so thin. Hopefully that's not the case, but if it is the case, this post will be proof that somebody should sue this company, because I'm saying that the wires are thin, but the wires are not so thin that they don't heat. I'm just saying this new blanket is a million times better experience than the old blanket that I had, and it's a million 20 times better just living. I just enjoy this blanket. I enjoy life a little bit better with this blanket. It keeps me warm at night, which is nice. I'm actually to the point where I'm considering buying a Sunbeam heated throw blanket, just because I have two places that I spend most of my day. One place is sitting right now where I'm sitting, doing this kind of stuff, doing just internet stuff. And the other place that I am is in bed. And again, in bed, I'm under a very thick Sherpa blanket. So for the most part, I can maintain my body heat and stay warm for the most part of the year. But when it starts getting below 20 degrees, 10, 15 degrees, that blanket, I have to add layers. So with this new blanket, with this new Sunbeam flannel heated blanket, I don't have to add layers. Again, I don't think that this is a good solution for just a sheet and just a blanket. I think you do need the insulating blanket on top of it. But this new blanket stack, now I cannot use the down comforter that I had last year, the last couple of years. I don't need 10 blankets. I need a sheet, the electric blanket, and the outer insulation blanket, which could probably be less than the Sherpa blanket, but that Sherpa blanket is comfortable and it's doing a great job of insulating. So last night I had the blanket turned up pretty high before I went to bed, and then when I went to bed, I had to turn the blanket way down, like all the way down to 1, which I could have probably even turned it off, but I wanted to keep the heat constant all night so that I didn't wake up in the middle of the night freezing. But this thing, it really just, it's a game changer for me. It makes things so much more comfortable. And I know that come when it gets a little bit warmer, I can just pull the fleece blanket back, and I'll just have the sheet and this fleece blanket on top of it. I can turn the heat off and I can stay warm underneath that blanket because it is fleece. I don't want to share this because anybody who's having a hard time moderating their body heat, which was definitely an issue for me, still is an issue for me. This electric blanket, it's a game changer. Again, it's not inconvenient, kind of a pain in the ass like the old blanket was 30 years ago. This new blanket is just like a normal blanket. They talk about throwing it in the washer and washing it, which at some point I will, but I'm still a little bit uncomfortable putting an electric blanket in the washer, even though I know I'm going to dry it, or I'll hang dry it, or however I'll dry it. I know I'm going to do that. I'm not totally comfortable throwing anything electric into the washer and then the dryer, just because I don't want the wires. I don't know what the wires look like inside the blanket, but I don't need the wires getting damaged or have a problem. Again, I don't want to be the case study for why you shouldn't throw an electric blanket in the washer because of the danger, and I just don't want to be that guy. I don't want all you guys to be like, yeah, I read about this guy in New York. He threw his blanket in the washer and dryer, and then his house burned down and he got electrocuted in the middle of the night. I don't want to be that guy. Anyways, this isn't This is not a review. I'm not reviewing the Sunbeam product, even though, again, I only bought Sunbeam because I had it 30 years ago and I had a little bit of trust. And so far, I've had a good experience. Luckily, I haven't had any issues. Um, so, again, this isn't a review. This is just a daily update in my life and something that's made my life a little bit nicer. And hey, if you buy this blanket and you live in a colder area and this changes your life a little bit, do me a favor, make a comment, because I want to make sure that people know that this blanket is kind of a game changer. I could have actually used this thing in Florida when I was a kid, because my grandmother, who was from New Jersey, she used to love to put a sheet and a really thin, probably fleece blanket on our bed, and then she would turn the air conditioner to like 40 degrees. Again, it was hot there. It was 80, 90 degrees during the day. It was important to her that we all slept very cold at night. I could have put this blanket on my bed in Florida at my Nana's house, and I probably would have slept more comfortable, which is kind of funny, because she wouldn't have allowed that at all, that's for sure. Anyways, if you thought this post was interesting, then do me a favor, give me a thumbs up. If you're interested in taking a look at this blanket that I bought, I am going to link it, so please check it out. And I just want to again say that this blanket has changed my life a little bit for the better. I can cool off. I can pull the Sherpa blanket off the top and just use this electric blanket, and that keeps me plenty warm. Or if I want the extra insulation, I can use the Sherpa blanket on top of it. I don't have a link to the Sherpa blanket. It's just a really thick Sherpa blanket that keeps the insulation in the covers. I'm just glad that I don't need 6 layers of blankets this year. I'll have 2 layers, and that'll make my whole experience in life a little bit better. And then staying warm, that's pretty nice on top of that. Again, considering I'm a Florida kid living in the freezing cold New York, temperate BS. And I think that this year is going to be a little bit easier for me. Anyways, I hope you thought this post was interesting. Do me a favor, give me a thumbs up if you liked it. If you're subscribed, thank you so much. If you're not subscribed, hey, please subscribe. I add at least one new post covering my health updates on Sundays, and occasionally I add other posts like this one. Hope you have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.